Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television, and we began the program by exploring the differences between Mr. President and his opponent in the ADC on policy intervention, subsidy or no subsidy. But the bigger conversation is how subsidy trickles down to the grassroots in many different areas. Healthy remuneration that will increase your purchasing power, investment in education, investment in health. And let's look at education. How much of budget goes to disability inclusion in education? That takes us to our next conversation this morning. And, you know, the United Nations Educational and Social Cultural Organization, UNESCO, gives us an insight when it says Nigerian education sector analysis says only 54% of school-age children and young people with disability in Nigeria have ever attended school. We'll explore more of that particular statistic this morning on the program. And joining us, we have two beautiful young women. We have Crystal Chigu. She's a founder, executive director, the Irede Foundation. We also have Beulah Chigu, ambassador, the Irede Foundation. Both women join us right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us.
Let's begin, by interrogating these statistics and what it means for the lack of education, but the consequences that you see as an organization for lack of investment in education for persons, young people, students, pupils with disability.
So when you think of the out of school children in Nigeria, it even goes beyond children without disability, but it's a double whammy when you think of the children with disabilities. You have more of them staying back at home. I think it's getting worse by the day because we do have a lot of children. If I look at our own organization, for instance, out of all, about 400 children that we have, only about 10% of them are right in school and able to do the things that they do. And the reason is, from infrastructure and accessibility to those infrastructures, to lack of information, or to even, the stigmatization that comes with it because their parents they're already kind of culturally accustomed to think that these children should not be in school, because when you think of disability, what a lot of people say is inability. So they keep their children back at home. They don't want to go through that pressure of having to put that child with disability in the same environment as their typical. And as a result of that, it keeps tanking, even with all the work that is being done around inclusive education.
We'll look at the level of acceptance, by schools generally of children with disability, for those who even have the opportunity to go in the first place. But let me come to you, Beulah. How do you see that this type of exclusion in society, how does it affect young people with disability mentally, psychologically, when they do not get an opportunity for education, for good education?
I would say the less and less disability inclusion in the education sector is, the worse it is for the minds of the people, of the kids or children with disabilities, because the less representation you see, the more you begin to see education and schooling as an impossibility. So it ruins the mindset. I was speaking to a group of kids, teenagers with disabilities, on self-awareness and self-inclusion, and only 2 out of a 10 people class were in school. And only two, and it broke my heart. And then I was speaking about self-awareness in the school, and they were like, we can go to school. Like, it was genuinely a question that was posed to me. And I was speaking and I was like, yes, you can go to school, you can be whoever you want to be. And they had genuinely never had that sentiment for themselves. And so it ruins their self-esteem, it ruins their mental health. They don't have hopes and dreams of their own, and it's sad.
Well, it's great that we're having this conversation. And by the way, you have an incredible name, Beulah. But I want to begin my conversation with you, Beulah, because have you suffered some sort of marginalization in your experience? I know you're here with mommy. But talk to us, give us a first-hand perhaps stigma that you have experienced, as you know, for someone who has some sort of deformity.
Jesus, I just finished high school. Well, I just finished my A-level, so I'm trying to go through my years of schooling in Nigeria. I would say there's this one distinct memory of in high school, early high school, like junior work times, and sometimes in the Harmattan season, my leg gets flaky because dryness and stuff. So I had blisters and I couldn't walk. And I asked my fellow classmates to let the nurse in the school know that I was having blisters and that I wouldn't be able to come out of my hostel. I wasn't even asking for anything extra. And she was like, yeah, that's fine. And normal boarding school, you have to be up by 7, you have to be out by 7:30. And then in the middle of, like in the 5-minute period it took for them to come back and tell me, yeah, she said it's fine, she sent another person to tell me to get people to carry me out of the hostel. Okay, so I was carried out. And then on my way out of the hostel, I was accosted and she started to yell at me and tell me that I'm being a burden to the school and this is not a special school and I should tell my mommy to take me home. Not only that, but she made them leave me outside immobile in front of the dining hall. All my juniors, my seniors, my teachers, everybody walked and went to school and looked at me as a spectacle, and she left me there.
Wow.
Until a teacher, my school counselor at the time, was looking for me and was told what had happened. And then she came and took me into the sick bay and all the things. But even the people that are charged with care for persons with disabilities within the school, they're not really good at their jobs. So that is an example. And that day, I wanted to leave school. I genuinely didn't want to go to school. I was going to tell my mom, hello, can we go to a special school? And I felt like what she was saying was true. And experiences like that will break you. I cried so much that day, and I don't even cry.
I'm happy you're saying this now and you're smiling. It means that it's behind you. Yeah. But I wonder, perhaps when she brought that story to you, did you ever consider maybe taking her to a special school? How does it feel as a mother raising a child who has that burden, that form of physical challenge?
I think first, I will never take her out of that school. I see it as a point of advocacy and a point to drive home my point. Because like every other child, school fees was paid. And the school said they were inclusive. And that's, kind of brings out a different side of me. Not only because Beulah is my daughter, but it brings it out every time a parent at the foundation is coming and telling me that they are going through that. So basically what I do is I go to the school, I quote the law, I start working towards it. And inclusive education is not about having a special school where some certain people go to. In fact, one of the things that I tell people is when it comes to inclusion, we're not going to have a different market for people with disabilities or have a different organization that houses just people with disabilities. So I see it as a point of advocacy. And so when she came home and gave me this story, the first thing I told her is you're going to go back to that school. You're going to show them that you have abilities and you can live your life.
Absolutely.
I also engaged the school authorities and also helps them to understand why it's important for them to have some sort of training and making sure that people do know what they need to do. And that's why as an organization, especially for children, because I think you can mold and the minds of kids the way you want it to be, we came up with comic books that make the champions, as we call them, and persons with disabilities be the superheroes, so you can see them from a different light and also continue to show their ability. So it's work that needs to be done. It's currently ongoing. There's a lot of advocacy happening in pocket of places. I think the work that she did over the last 2 weekends talking to the teenagers was, bringing advocacy to them, helping them to understand that they can have an education. It just really takes a parent to put that child in class. It takes the government to ensure that the schools, are fit for these children. It ensures that we have the right kind of budget in place to ensure that we can care for them, because some of these children with disabilities might not be able to walk into their classroom. They might need a carer. They might need, a different kind of understanding. So I really think it's work that needs to be done, and so that's how I really approach it.
Let's talk about the progress and the successes and the pushbacks, because you've spoken broadly about it. So I don't know what data you have to share, because it's important. So while we're talking and she was talking, I was telling myself, so the schools that are operational now, if you approach them, what are you going to tell them to add and adjust and modify? If someone is coming to you and say, I want to start a school for the purpose of inclusion, what are you going to say? Add this, add that, and the other. Because this is first part, create awareness. Second is to educate. So let's stay with the education part.
Okay, so the first thing that I would say is there is a law in the country that helps everyone so there are policies, but as a people we have a law. So the first thing is ensuring, just like you have safeguarding policies in place for school, child protection policy, to ensure that the school has something that has to do. So we educate them to let them know that there is a policy on how you treat children with disabilities. The second thing is to have them train their carers, the teachers, and help everyone to be aware. You will be shocked at how many people don't even understand what it is at all that disability is about. And that's why when we get into schools with the comic books, it's not even just the children, it's the teachers asking questions and saying, oh, we never knew that this was possible. I never knew that a child with albinism cannot see the board like every other child. And so what I need to do is probably have that child sit in front. Or when I'm allowing people to go and play outside, if it's very sunny, I need to keep this child or give the child an umbrella, or ensure that this child has their sunscreen. So all of those things are trainings that can happen for teachers so that they are equipped. Just the same way they're learning mathematics and being able to train these children, in the same vein, they have the right curriculum that helps them to work with children with disabilities.
Just a moment. Because, in addition to, because we're going to come to her, in addition to that, as you were talking, I'm thinking about, would it be the same for communities as well? City centers have a bit of a luxury to be able to afford a carer, some of the things you're advocating for. Some don't even have complete maths teacher. They don't have an English teacher. Some in local government may have a very significant number of teachers, not to talk about an additional carer. So how do we navigate that if you're putting out a proposal?
Thank you. I think the first thing is, you step down education or whatever information that you are giving people. So if I'm going to go to the private sector and go to a corporate environment, the way I'm going to engage will be definitely different. And that's why the work we do goes beyond just the city centers and we go right into the grassroots. In fact, I think that when you begin to think of the grassroots and communities, it's easier because they're very communal. So you see that the people that train go beyond just teachers in the classroom. So you want to make sure that they are cultural leaders, maybe the imam or the pastor have the right kind of understanding, and they can cascade it in languages that everybody will understand. So it doesn't stop just in the city centers. We continue to take this kind of conversations to the grassroots. Are we there today? Not yet. Is it work in progress? Absolutely. I think we're getting there.
And earlier I was talking about, what your findings would be in your interactions with schools on the needs of special children, physically challenged children. Perhaps I should bring this to Beulah, who has interacted with teenagers whom you say a lot of them are unable to go to school. Only 2 out of 10, quoting from your figures. What do they tell you about their parents' experiences? Is it finances? Is it that they approach the schools and they reject them?
Depending on the day and depending on the person. Financing is a big issue for people with disabilities that want to go to school. If today, personally, me, Beulah Chibu, as educated and as far gone as I am, if I didn't have a prosthetic limb, I am not going to school. There are other options. There's crutches, there's a wheelchair. I personally would not use crutches. I don't like it. My mommy knows. There's no way. If I don't have a leg, I'm not going to school. Because most schools don't have ramps. So even if I wanted to use a wheelchair, I can't use a wheelchair up and down a ramp. I need a caregiver. So if I don't have a leg, I'm not going to school. I will have to afford. Not everybody can afford a leg. Get the drift. Sometimes that's it. School fees, if you have paid for leg and you cannot pay for school, now it's still there. Sometimes you go to school and the bullying is too much, and I say, let me go back home. I was okay at home. We can homeschool. Sometimes the bullying is in the curriculum. I had a class when I was in high school. It was a CRK class. Never forget. And the definition of a person with disabilities, was people that cannot take care of ourselves and need us to survive. I was like,
That was in the curriculum?
That was in the curriculum. It was in the textbook, and I challenged it because that's how I was raised. And the teacher failed me over and over and over again. And it wasn't like the definition I was given was wrong. The one I was given was wrong. She just wanted to cut me down to size and be like, this is what they've said. And if this is what is being taught in schools, this is what people are going to believe. If this is what people are going to believe, that's how people with disabilities are going to be perceived. And that's how they're going to be treated.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. So what's that definition? Because I know that there are times when in this country people even describe people with disabilities with different kind of names. Which is the globally acceptable or accepted names that we should use to perhaps define people who have disabilities?
Just PWDs, persons with disabilities.
Persons with disabilities.
Yeah, because at the very core, they're persons first. They're people, individuals first. Everyone here is wearing glasses. Everyone has a form of disability. The grades are different. The grades are different.
Why are you calling my name?
The grades because all three of us are wearing glasses. You know, ADHD is a disability. The grades are just different. Some you can see more clearly. Some affect people's lives more greatly. But everyone at the very core has something they cannot do.
Let me add to a layer of what you. First, I'm very proud of you. Super proud. I'm just in admiration for your bravery, your ability.
And then with her body language,
and
very positive.
you came with gun blazing, So
but not so like.
So the point I want to make here, just to add to your string of ammunition in terms of fighting your cause, is that you're talking about constitutional issues. Section 16 is one of the portions of the Constitution I like to quote. Subsection 2, I'll read what it says. The state shall direct its policy towards ensuring, listen up, D, that suitable and adequate shelter, suitable and adequate food, reasonable national minimum living wage, old age care and pensions, unemployment, sick benefits and welfare of the disabled are provided for all citizens. So it's within your right to make a demand on the state to factor you in all its affairs. Is that clear? So, but talk to us. You are this bold. The people that are not as bold as you within your sphere, how are you trying to influence them? Because somebody may not be as articulate as you are. Because I just feel like you need to infect a lot more people. It will make the world a better place, if you get my drift.
I don't know if I can talk about this here because it's not.
No, whatever I can talk about, leave it.
But I think building communities that open and forums that open up the minds of people. The reason I am this bold and this articulate is because of my support system.
Your mom.
Had to. For my support system, I have great parents. So the parents, the caregivers, the first points of contact, they need to be educated. I spoke to a family, to the kids last week, and she didn't know what disability she had. She was 13. And I was giving a seminar on disability, and I'm like, okay, does everyone know what they have? And she's like, what I have? Girl, I don't have nothing. I was like, you have cerebral palsy. I'm like, so what do you tell people when they ask you why you're in a wheelchair? And she said, God will help me to stand and walk one day. I'm like, you need to be okay and like, no, okay, this is an issue that I have. How do we move on? And so the parents and the caregivers need to get to a point. And so you can help the child once you've accepted it. So good support system from your parents, your family around you. I have really good friends. And some of the friends were bad when I met them, and you constantly advocate for yourself and make it clear. So things like this help. If we fixed up the curricula within whatever religious context, but basically fixing up the community so it's even easier. Sometimes I am not this articulate. Sometimes I am way more afraid. Sometimes I don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes I don't want to be the girl with the disability, and that's okay for people to want. But also, it's a personal thing. If you get to the point where you're tired of being treated like crap, you speak up.
Amazing fire that you carry there, and many more persons with different grades of disability need to be infected with it. Now, prior to this conversation, I did a check on budget allocated to disability or what you call inclusion education, and it is really sad to find that, and this is a recent document, an analysis of budget documents from all 6 Southwest states for fiscal years 2022 to 2025 found that financial planning for inclusive education only began in earnest in 2023, 5 years after the Disability Act came into effect, and a lot of subnationals are either allocating 0.1% to disability inclusion or nothing at all. Now, as an advocate, what are the consequences of this particular, insignificant allocation to disability inclusion? And I really want to know, what are the pushbacks that you get in your advocacy to get physically challenged children admitted into schools properly?
I know you talked about it. I just remember 4 years ago when we did some work around inclusive budgeting with Lagos State and also at the national level, and we're doing this advocacy work on inclusive budgeting, just making sure that there is money available for these children to go to school. So what happens when we continue to get the kind of pushback we get is that none of them stay back at home. One of the things that happen with disability is the cost of managing the disability in itself is a lot. So a lot of parents cannot afford it. An average Nigerian cannot afford to take care of their child. So when you need to make a choice, the choice really doesn't come to education. It's let this child even survive. Let me be able to get the medication. Let me be able to give this child a wheelchair to at least be able to get, so that I can be a little bit independent. So that is what happens. You continue to, they make education the second, third priority. It's not priority. Let the child get out of bed. Let the child eat. Let the child at least be alive. Then we can start thinking of school. So we'll continue to have such cases because, they need to make a choice. And a lot of times the choice that fails is education. What are the barriers we face? In doing the advocacy and doing the inclusive work, the year we did the inclusive budgeting work, to even get to sit with some government, people was a lot. They were not even available to have the conversation. But at the end of the day, in Lagos State especially, we started getting a lot of inroad, having those conversations. Sometimes it's infrastructure. The buildings are just not accessible. So if you don't put the right kind of amount of money into it, then you can't even have a building, up to toilets and bathrooms. I have friends, persons with disabilities that I've interacted with, that when they leave their home in the morning, they never use the bathroom until they get back home.
And that's not good for their kidney.
It's not good for them. So they just stay there on that wheelchair because they can't even get their wheelchair into the bathroom that they are going to use. So there's no caregiver. So they don't drink water. They just stay in that wheelchair. And you see a lot of those children. Some schools will even say, no, you have your money. They will say, we cannot take you. I remember a private school that I had to go to, like I wrote them. told them about the law and had to, because they refused to take the boy because it said his classroom was going to be upstairs and they can't afford to bring the classroom downstairs just for his sake. So because of that boy was not going to be in school, even though his parents could afford him being in that particular school. And because it was closer home, they preferred to take that. So I think it's just multi-layered, looking at all the challenges that really do exist.
And instructive for policy intervention from state government. We're wrapping up now, but I can't resist it. Beulah, what is your counter definition for a person with disability in response to your teacher?
Such a long time ago. A person with a disability is someone that has some form of a physical deformity that needs to be managed.
I'd like to add, needs to be loved. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Crystal Chibu, founder, executive director, the Radio Foundation, and amazing Beulah Chibu, ambassador.
Super amazing, let's add that. Super amazing.
The Radio Foundation. Amazing mom, amazing daughter. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Amazing father.
Him too.
Yeah, he's not here, but amazing father, please. Shout out to your father.
Yes, we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll bring the last leg of our conversation for today. Stay with the Morning Brief. We'll be right back.